chip on my shoulder.
We gathered the 3 most successful coaches in Chicago basketball history. They combined 13 state championship rings.
Once you give it, you can't get it back.
Coming together to give Chicago the show it deserves.
What a play by Terry Cummings.
Of the best basketball culture in the world. This is 13 Rings. I know. Shoot, you probably painted that painting over your left shoulder there on the wall there. Everything.
Give me time, I probably will.
Well, that's a perfect way to start this off. We have a Renaissance man on the show today, and I'm super excited to dig into the many facets of the great Terry Cummings, not just as a basketball player, but you're the only person that I know of, maybe other than Roger Powell, who was a licensed minister while he was a teenage basketball player, which to me is the most impressive thing about your resume. I was just joking that you probably painted that painting because you have an album. You do music, basketball, ministry, and you work out, 4 times a week? So we're pumped to have the Carver legend on today. Nick, did you outscore Terry Cummings in high school, or Cassie Russell hold the record?
I broke all their records. They ain't had no three-point line back then.
Okay.
Look, maybe if they had a three-point line or something like that, I wouldn't have came close to them.
No, there was a bunch of guys that came through Carver that were putting that thing up over half court.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Did you ever interact with Cassie Russell? Because that's a name that he's bigger than a human. I mean, he's like a Paul Bunyan type figure in Chicago.
Yeah, bigger than Terry Cummings and everybody else that came through Carver, because he was the first to come through the school that actually they went downstate, won the state championship, but also went, play with the Lakers, won the championship with them too. So he had a great, great history that for me, and I have talked to Cassie over the years because I was amazed because we really didn't have a lot of people that came back to Carver prior to me. Cassie came back, I remember, maybe once or twice, and a few other people, but not very many people that were successful in the school or through the school came back in those days.
So what would the all-time starting 5 be? It would be you two, Tim Hardaway, Cassie Russell. Who would be the 5th person on that team?
Well, you got Bobby.
Oh yeah, Bobby Simmons.
Yeah.
Oh no, Bobby Simmons went to Simeon, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, but Bobby spent a lot of time up in Carver.
Okay, so you're Bobby Simmons.
He grew up that camp I was telling you about.
Yeah.
He grew up in that camp.
Okay, so Bobby
grew
Simmons.
up in my camp with him there. But it was a bunch of kids that came through there that were really good ball players, and even before myself, Sean Thrower. We had a dude named Bowes who was probably about Barkley size, was built like a big tank, Cabal. It was a lot of good guys that came through there and a lot of older cats that people probably don't know, because of the history. Campbell. Do you remember Campbell, Nick?
Yeah, Campbell. No,
He was left-handed, but Campbell went to a major university too. He was a pretty good player. Maurice Purvis. It was a lot of older cats, So I would know them more than you would, but but it was a lot of guys that played that people don't know about, but the people out in Allville Gardens in Carver, they would know.
Yeah, it was a lot of guys putting up points too.
Oh yeah, my brother Lee
Cummings, yes sir. Lee was a bad boy.
Yeah, Nick, what is the perspective of you as the younger generation? How did you look at Terry Cummings? What did that name mean to people of your generation?
Well, it meant a lot, going to Carver and being around Carver because he always came back. He came back and gave back to the community. He did camps. He was a big figure around there. And, the thing like myself that guys need to do in this generation, they need to pay homage to the guys that came before them. I mean, he Tim Hardaway, Terry Cummings, Andre Moore. It's a lot of guys that came through at Wade Jenkins that I knew the research and history of Carver. So, when I played the game, I just wanted to make them proud and let them understand I knew exactly who they was. And I think guys need to do that nowadays and know who's who. Because when you put on that jersey, it's a special thing. And, I had guys that always, tell me stories about how they played the game and, how they took care of business off the court as well. So, for me, it was always something I believed in. It's making them proud.
And Mr. Terry, what is your earliest phase of your life look like in Chicago? What neighborhood were you born into? Where did you live early on? I'd love to hear about your earliest years.
So I was raised around Lincoln Park and Cabrini Green. We live right down the street. We were on Willow and Halstead. We were in between Lincoln Park and Cabrini Green. And so we spent a lot of time as kids in Cabrini Green, and we lived there till about 5th or 6th grade. I moved out south and went to Scanlon on the south side of Chicago, right around 116th, 17th. And from there, wound up at Carver, going there to sign up for night school one day. And when I walked in to sign up for night school, I went to Harlan my freshman year.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and then wound up at Carver at my sophomore year. The night I walked in to sign up for night school, the coach was walking out while I was walking in and asked me if I was interested. Then came to find out that Coach Horace Howard had also coached one of my older brothers in Indiana. So he said, "What is your name?" I told him. He said, "Are you any kin to Ellis Luttrell?" And I said, "Yeah, that's my brother." He said, "I coached him." He said, and about that time, between my freshman and sophomore year, I grew from 5'8" to 6'4" over the summer. So when I walked through through the door.
Stop. You did not grow. You said 5'8" to 6'4" in one summer.
I was in so much pain, and I didn't know I was growing. I didn't realize how much I had grown until I got back to Chicago. I spent the summer in Indiana and got back to Chicago, and I was head and shoulders above my brother Lee and above all my friends that I left before that summer. And then walked up in Carver to sign up for night school, and I was the tallest kid in the hallway. And he asked me if I was interested. And I think one of the greatest lessons that came to me while I was at Carver was Coach Howard would not let me play with the varsity cats because they had been with him since they were freshmen and had been committed to his program and his plan. And so when I came in eager to play, it was like, no, you're not going to play in front of them. And so I pretty much didn't play my sophomore year. I only really played 2 years of high school basketball.
What?
And, my junior and senior years, those were the only 2 years I really played.
That is so crazy.
No, that's one thing about the coaches at Carver. I don't know what it was, but if you ain't hit your books, they ain't letting you play.
And the funny thing about it is with us is if you didn't let us play, we wouldn't hit the books.
Right.
Wow. So what did you drink like a gallon of milk a day? How did you grow?
I was killing milk. I was killing some milk. I mean, my grandfather, he was mad at me because I was not only down in all the milk, I was busting out all the light bulbs in the basement. The ceiling was only about 6 feet tall. When I got there, I had no problem clearing the light bulbs. But by the time I left, I was killing them. And I could hear him fussing all the time about he's busting out all the light bulbs, drinking all the milk.
Crazy. So who did you look up to basketball-wise back then? Everybody's got those kind of childhood basketball heroes that seem larger than life guys.
Mine was like Dr. J and really one of the guys that played for the Bulls that and I can almost look back and see that my shot kind of resembles his to some extent was Mickey Johnson. I don't know if you remember Mickey Johnson from Aurora. Yeah. He was a pretty decent ball player in his time. And but Dr. J, by far, because I didn't pattern my game after him. I liked him as a person and his character more than I did anything else. But I loved the way he carried himself on the court and off the court. And I never thought I would meet him. But one year, I think I was still in high school, and Jesse Jackson would have those games out in Gary, Indiana. He would have put on these games, and Dr. J came, and they invited me out to play along with Isaiah and a bunch of the other city boys that were playing at the time. And I got to meet him, and I was really impressed by him, but I was impressed by him way before then, you know, just by the way he carried himself, you know.
What did you say to him when you met him?
Man, it wasn't much to say. I always been a real kind of quiet guy, you know, when it came to people, because I never wanted to, you know, presume myself to be in the company of people and know what to say or how to respond. But sometimes the best thing is if you don't respond at all, it's like a wisdom that they give to you, because they, you know, this joker here is older than he really is, because he knew not to open his mouth and say anything. You know, because sometimes it's the best thing when you're around people and you don't really understand the impact of the moment, but you know it's special. Because, you know, I'm also a writer, so like I'm writing my second book. Yeah, and the second book is entitled "I Walk with Giants," and it's really about how elaborate the plan and the scheme of God is that He positions us around people, places, and things that are great in the eyes of men, but we never assumed that we could have them because we're walking in the shadow of the people who own those things. Mm-hmm. But what I learned over time is that as I'm walking in these people's shadow and learning what they know, I'm also preparing myself to be who they are, you know, to be a giant, you know, and the giant doesn't always mean that, you know, you usurp, you know, your position over everyone else, but it means that you are someone that has to be contended with by everything and everyone in the universe that is mankind.
Wow. And what was your first book?
It's entitled Limitless. I released it actually this year. And it's about the journey of finding yourself on the path of life. That once you find yourself, then all the possibilities or the limitless possibilities of life and beyond are open to you once you know who you are. If you don't know who you are, you know, you may become successful to the borders, boundaries that men specify it to be, but in truth, you never become truly successful till you know who you are.
I'm gonna go pick that book up. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, you got it. Amazon. I'm gonna go to the library and get it. Yeah.
It's on Amazon.com. It's under Dr. Terry Cummings, or under the title Limitless.
But you're a doctor?
Yeah, I have a doctorate and in divinity, and I have an honorary doctorate in music.
So okay, let's recap. Doctor, author, musician with an album out, not just playing the instrument, but has an album. 4 albums?
Yeah. Well, you telling your age, they're not albums anymore. They're CDs.
I know. Well, you know what? No, wait, it's back to being called albums now. We've gone back. I don't know. I'm not cool.
Don't feel bad. I get caught doing it. I get caught doing it too, because I've been in music business since 1985. You know, really? I started in the music industry by as a publisher, because I own a publishing company, and I would handle the publishing of other writers who couldn't get their money from publishing companies or record labels, and I'd take a fee from that. And then I went into writing music for TV shows. I did in the 80s and early 90s. I wrote for about 4 or 5 shows on Black entertainment television. I'd create the intro, outro music, theme music, and stuff like that for the shows, and then got into songwriting later.
Yeah, one thing they always say about Terry, they always say, Nick, he religious, he write music, he can write books, and he educated. They always say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So adding author, composer, and business owner to that list too. That's crazy. Well, so I want to know kind of your spiritual journey, because this is one of the most interesting things about your story. Is a lot of people, maybe they come to faith later in life. You came to faith at a very early age. What was your first interaction with God, and what's kind of your faith journey at the very beginning?
Well,
How did that all start?
I was rushed through church. I was rushed to church 8 days a week. So, you know, you was either going to know God or the devil. It wasn't going to be no in between. But by the time I was about 13 or 14, my mom stopped, you know, forcing us to go to church. And she said, you're old enough to make your own decisions. And, you know, went out, and I think in about 2.5, 3 years, I did about as much stuff you would want to do. I got caught up. I mean, I was drinking and smoking by the time I was 8, 9 years old. I was carrying a gun in one pocket, a knife in the other, you know, and then I don't even remember my 8th grade graduation because I was so high. You know, I went through a whole lot of stuff in a little bit of time. And about the time I went to Indiana, that same time where I grew from 5'8" to 6'4", and my grandparents were churchgoers. They kept us in church 8 days a week. I mean, wasn't no time for hardly to play. You had to sneak away to play because you were going to church no matter what, and getting prayed for, oil laid on you, you know, everything, fasting, praying, you know, and you better not think for one moment you ain't going to do it, because if you're in that house, you're going to do it.
You're going,
Yeah.
You got to go to church,
So,
baby.
Yeah. You know, but it brought me, you know, and gave me a foundation. You know, my mother was a praying woman. Her mother, which is my grandmother, my great-grandmother, Big Mama, was still alive. She lived to be almost 100. She was 99 when she passed. Our family has been fortunate, but my spiritual journey has always been, for me, something really supernatural, and has been the thing that balanced me out, because I was an angry young man. And Nick, most of y'all wouldn't have heard about these things, but,
Right.
but I was an angry young man until I came to know the Lord, and I managed to take my anger and funnel it into sports. And that's how I became, you know, I really feel more like a protege of sports. I wasn't trying to be a professional athlete. I wasn't even trying to be a basketball player. The real oddity is that I played basketball because of my brother Lee. You know, my spiritual walk was the thing that really set me aside from everybody. And most of the cats I was playing against, no matter what stature they had, because it gave me an instant maturity that most of them didn't have, because I understood life already as a teenager. I had already made adjustments. I already seen, you know, by the time I was 7, 8 years old, I saw my first man killed, and seeing dead bodies was nothing new. So it was graduating into understanding, you know, how life itself is fleeting. It's simple, but it's fleeting. It's not promised you, but it's fleeting. You might have it now, but you might not have it the next moment. You know, it goes that quick. And when you see enough stuff happen in front of you, you take it to heart, you can grow from it. If you think for one moment that this can't happen to you, it probably will. You know, but the spiritual walk to me is one of those things that I really can connect to my grandparents, my mom, and the fact that they kept us so close to church. It kept us out of things. I didn't get involved in as many things. And then by the time I got to Carver, I don't know if you remember the Richardsons, they would have lived in Block 10. James Richardson was my best friend and is my best friend, and his family. We were thick as thieves, but them jokers would get into trouble. They wouldn't allow me. They wouldn't call me. They wouldn't connect with me or contact me, let me know what was going down. They did everything they could to keep me out of stuff. And in the end, it turned out to be one of those things that in that spiritual walk, I believe, is the hand of God covering you and giving people to you that'll help you get to where you need to be without you really knowing they're helping you.
Yeah. Now, it all makes sense why you're so tough on the court. It all came together now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're this nice, quiet gentleman, and you know, ferocious 6'9" power forward. You knew there had to be a story there, right?
And then another point that he just touched on, where guys today, your friend wouldn't tell it, no, you can't hang with me today while I'm going to do this. They like, no, you come on and go with me. That was the difference from back in the day and now.
Yeah.
You know, guys are like, come on, man, you got to hold the pistol, handle the pistol, or you come on and go with us, man. Now, you know, it's bad. Back in the day, they would never let us do that.
No. But the gangbangers had you know, there was a thing back then that if you were a baller, you were exempt from gangbanging. But if you crossed that line, they wouldn't respect you.
Exactly.
You know, if you crossed that line and came and tried to come over, because a lot of the gangbangers were great athletes. They were cats that would have been great athletes on the high school level in the inner city, but chose that life instead. You know, but because they knew the life of an athlete, they set a precedence for you. If you stayed on your side, you wouldn't be affected by this life. And that was back then, because now there's no regard for anybody.
No.
You know, everybody, you get in the way, you know.
You're in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
they don't care about none of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one question I have for you, and this is something that applies to every single person, especially young men watching this, is this concept of temptation is something that is, for an NBA player, is something that you experience way more than the normal person. But it's also an issue that affects, you know, non-players.
Common people.
Exactly. And so I would love to get some of your wisdom on how, because everybody can learn from this, how did you deal with temptation in the NBA? And what kind of temptation is there for a ball player like you?
Well, I mean, anything you can imagine. I mean, really, it's not just what is available, it's what you open yourself up to. And temptation in and of itself is I think that we have given it a ill meaning and determination as far as defining it. Temptation in and of itself is not wrong. Temptation merely means the test. You know, the test is not wrong. It's what you do in allowing yourself to go beyond that moment when you give in, or as the scripture says, when you are lured in through your own desires. That's when you get in trouble, when your lust get in the way of what you know in your mind you should and shouldn't be doing. You know, and temptation itself is merely a test. There's a scripture in Psalms 105:19 that says, until the time that the word of the Lord came to pass, the word of the Lord tested me. And it's another example about how things prayed over you. Even, you know, all common people, athletes, entertainers, politicians, their parents pray over them from the time they're born. Well, those words that are prayed over them become their test, because until those words come to pass, those words test the character, you know, the ability of that person to become whatever those words said. You know, if mama prayed for you to be a politician, the test is, can you live up to it? Can you have the character, the integrity? Can you maintain the stability that's necessary to be that man in that office or in that position? You know, and life is more than the temptation. Most people just get stuck on the temptation and think that that's it, but it's not. As soon as I got in the league, we drove up to Indiana. I think it was my second or third game in the league in '82. And as soon as we drove up to the Hyatt Regency there was a line around the wall of the front of the building, a number of prostitutes and evening women. And this was the nature of the NBA when I came to it. I mean, the stuff, they weren't waiting on the outside. You didn't have to call them. They were waiting for you when you got off the bus. And these a bunch of the older cats that I played with were at the end of their careers about that time. So it was a different mindset too. And the NBA had a different mindset. It let a lot of things go, because back then we also had a lot more fights, you know, and a lot of the big guys didn't have no teeth because most of them got them knocked out fighting all the time, you know. But to bring clarity, even more so to temptation. Temptation is just the act of it's the thing that really promotes our growth. You know, because we'll know when we have outgrown something when the temptation of it no longer affects us. You know, if the temptation affects us,
I'm blowing my mind.
He's speaking of knowledge.
That's great.
Yeah, when the temptation is affecting us, it means that we have not outgrown it, that we still have interest or intrigue in it.
So what's your advice to, you know, a lot of young men watching this at home that say, I don't want to listen to what I heard in Sunday school or what my parents tell me, you know, I'm feeling like I want to do this stuff. What's your advice to somebody who is failing that test, as you said, of temptation?
Well, just keep getting up, pressing forward, and working to overcome it, because people can give you 10 ways to overcome this or that temptation, test, or whatever. But the truth is when you live long enough on the earth to have experienced enough things and started to understand them with a lot more clarity, one of the things I can tell you about life is that life is a cycle of events that accumulate into whatever you will become. You know, you have to decide and make the choices at the forks in the road, you know, as to who you will become. And it's never too late and it's never too early, because who knows when that awe-inspiring moment is going to come, when all of a sudden everything clicks. You know, for me, I understood things clearly as a teenager that adults in their 50s still didn't understand. I was coming to the conclusion of matters already. You know, I was adding them up in my head and thinking them out. You know, I was getting into thinking on Einstein level of relativity about things, just the basic concept of, you know, of how all this stuff comes into play, how the order of all things are. And there are a lot of kids out there just like me that are maybe just don't like school, don't like the methodology of how school teaches, but they have the ability to talk, to create, and to anticipate on levels that most of the people teaching them can't do. You know, I was watching a movie recently, and the father was some kind of scientist, and the son was at a special school where he was a super intelligent kid, but had never had bad grades and got a bad grade in one class. The father was mad at the son because the son got the bad grade. When he asked the son what happened, the son told him, he said, he flunked me because I figured out the answer to the problem in my head, but I couldn't put it down on paper. I figured it out in my head, but I couldn't write it down. And so he said, so you mean to tell me that he basically flunked you because you're smarter than him? He said, that's what I told him. And that's when the father laughed, because the kid told him, you basically flunked me because I'm smarter than you. You know, and the truth is that where we get in trouble in the realization of compositions and mathematics or life itself is when we start thinking that our way is the only way to get to the bottom of something. You know, when we start thinking like that, that's a big mistake and accident waiting to happen, because there's just too many ways. And kids, you know, I think about, you know, like, I like to dance. I'm a big fella, but I'm light on my feet.
Are you really?
Yeah, but I like to
Dancing with the Stars, call Terry Cummings.
No, he won't do that. But the thing is I attribute pretty much every step of dancing to something I can do physically already. Like my basketball playing, you know, there are drills that we've done, so many drills that imply agility on the court. They have to do with hand and eye coordination, your feet, the way your feet move, the way your legs move, the rhythmic of it all. And it's like, all I do is I think about, okay, that looks like what we do in the sliding drill when we're denying the ball or we're zigzagging or something. And as crazy as it seems, that gets back to what the young man did in solving the problem in his head, because he related it to what he knew instead of what the teacher was trying to teach him.
Right. Wow. That's true.
And Nick, that was a question about temptation, and we ended up talking about the theory of relativity. We talked about the molecular structure. We talked about physics and motion on a dance floor.
But you know what? They all go together, right?
Right.
Okay, so I want to see you connect this piece, because this is a very interesting part of your story. Here we have Terry Cummings, the philosopher, the minister, going up against Dennis Rodman in 1994-95. You were a teammate of Dennis Rodman with the Spurs. I want you to tell me about your relationship, because you guys are oil and water. What was that relationship like?
Well, we spent a lot of years going at each other when he was at Detroit and I was in Milwaukee. So we had an understanding. And so when he came to San Antonio, that understanding stood still. You know, and I didn't play with Dennis. You know, I didn't play the antics of the games. And we had a team meeting once because Dennis was, you know, he had all the guys in the flux, and I was the only one, along with maybe one or two other cats that were just setting up saying, you know, it ain't about Dennis. Y'all ain't getting it. Y'all sitting up here talking about Dennis. It's about us. He got to play with us. We don't have to play with him.
Right.
You know, and so we're in the locker room after they done complained for weeks and months. And so when the meeting is called, none of them, except for myself and Avery Johnson, had anything real to say. So when Avery finally got done and they got to me, I told him, I said, we will never be a team until y'all understand we don't have to play with him. And I pointed at him. He has to play with us. I said, this is not his team. And I don't even know why we having this meeting, you know, because it was just a bunch of foolishness. And when we played in San Antonio, a reporter, I think we were in Milwaukee, playing Milwaukee at the time, and I was with San Antonio, and I think the reporter came to me and he said, Dennis talks about everybody on this team in the papers. He said, but he does not ever mention your name. And I was tying my shoes up, and the reporter said, well, why is it that he doesn't mention your name? I said, because he knows I'll whoop his ass. And I said, and he knows I'm not that guy. I'm not going to set up and mix words and stuff. And I know that a lot of this stuff that I may share may not all come across preacher-like, but it's more than just I'm more than just a preacher. I'm a man with a lot of diversity that has come over time. And I learned that, the best way to deal with most things is straightforward. There are some things you have to slow your roll on, but most things, if you just deal with them straight way, right off the bat, everybody has an understanding. If you hold back, that understanding is darkened because people can put in it whatever they want to in their opinion to make it a fact,
So did you kind of lay the line down with him? Because it almost sounds like a parallel between you treated him kind of like your Indiana relatives treated you when you came there, and they kind of drew that line and said, don't cross the line.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you did with Dennis?
Well, I did it and the team did it, but they wouldn't even let us practice against each other. They made sure that we practice on the same team in practice.
Because you two would get after it.
Terry Cummings.
Well, there was me getting after him.
I mean, you gotta understand. Terry played when men played like that. That was just tough, man. He set the tone on everybody. Like from day one, he just set the tone. And I don't know. That's how we all did it when we grew up around Carver area.
Yeah, you had to.
You got to. You got to stay around. And one thing you know about him and Mark Aguirre, when you hear stories from them, they always hold their ground on everybody.
Yeah, you have to.
They always.
Well, Horace Howard taught me a lesson that stayed with me even to this day. This just one of them. He told me that you're going to be the biggest guy on the court, and he was talking to me, not you, Nick. He said, you go be the biggest guy on the court. So every game you play, you have to go out and you have to use 2 fouls a game, one for the guard that likes to drive to the hole and the other for the biggest, strongest guy on the other team. And that was always, and mind you, he taught this to a cat that came straight off the streets with a thug life mentality, who was quiet with his whole, demeanor, everything. And Coach Howard taught me some lessons that stuck with me, and they made so much sense to me because they related to things I learned in the streets. Like in the streets, because I was from a large family, I had 6 brothers. And all my family lived on the north side. I would often get caught up in fights with cats trying to jump me on the way to school and on the way home. And so one of the lessons that correlated to this lesson with Howard was, when you get into a scenario like this, you don't fight 5 people. You fight the one that's talking the most. He gets hit first. That gives you enough time to collect yourself and run. This
is amazing. I think we can add Terry on the show long term.
It correlates to the thing that Howard gave me, because now I'm going out being the initiator. I'm initiating that whole thing so that it never, ever has to be talked about when the game goes on. Because you get those guys early, You can't get 2 fouls quick because it hurts your team. So you pick and choose when you're gonna use those fouls, and you make sure everybody's watching when you do it, because everybody from the guys on the floor to the guys on the bench, you want them to feel a shiver run down the back of their behind when they see this guy getting up off the floor. You know?
Man, I don't know if you remember this, man. You was playing at IIT. You and Craig Hodges was on the same team. And I was a little kid watching. You know, I was a kid watching. And I'm watching y'all play. And y'all was playing against my brother Byron team. And, man, you set one pick so hard, like around half court, and Craig Hodges came out. So I told my brother Byron, I said, B, you might not want to go off that screen when he comes. And try to avoid that one, man.
You know who it was? It was Alfrederick Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
No.
It was Alfrederick Hughes, and
No.
it was Michael Jordan. It wasn't Craig Hodges.
Oh, okay.
Because Alfrederick had been chasing Mike up and down the court, just being physical with him. And I told, about the end of the first or second quarter, I told Mike, I said, Mike, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up here at the half court, just bring him to me. He stayed off of Mike the rest of the game. When he got hit, he hit that pick so hard that the whole crowd, you'd have thought somebody did a monstrous dunk or something. Yeah. But at the end of that pick, it was over with. Then nobody want to hawk him no more like that.
Was that Chicago State? Was it?
It was Chicago State.
Man, I was a
kid.
There
or Malcolm X.
Yeah, man, I was a kid watching. I said, "Dang, man!" So as I got older, I used to tell people, "Hey, man, set the pick like Terry Cummings. Go watch how you tear your head off."
Oh yeah, and legally too.
Yeah,
just sit up there and wait for you.
Oh man,
who were the toughest people you went up against in that setting there, Terry?
In the summer league.
In the summer league, I've heard
the summer league was it was the pinnacle of growth for me, because although I wasn't playing high school ball as a freshman and sophomore, I played for the Playboy team, and on that team was Tyrone Bradley. I don't know if you remember Tyrone Bradley.
Yeah,
because did he go to Simeon?
Tyrone Bradley.
Yeah.
Was Simeon or was it Phillips? I think it might have been Simeon.
Yeah, well, I played with Tyrone, and of course, Michael Jordan was on that team. The Priors coached it. We were sponsored by Playboy. But I got so much experience playing against pros from overseas, pros from the NBA, college kids, high school kids. Even when they wouldn't let me play in high school, I was playing above all the talent that was playing in front of me in high school. So that by the time I got to my junior year, I think my junior year I averaged about 25 points and about 13, 14 boards easy.
Wow.
And they acted surprised, but I mean, between the summer league and all the talent that was in the summer league, I played against Dave Corzine when he was at DePaul. He was coming out of DePaul. And I might have been in high school a junior. And I think I scored about 50, 60 points on him the night in the summer league. And I wound up dunking on him real bad.
Really?
And he never came back to the program because they were saying that, and I got it too, because if you go in there, your stock will go down with the NBA if these young cats are doing you like this, But, the Pro-Am was not the NBA by any means, but people who came to Chicago State to watch them games, that was a time when basketball was really, man, it was like people really loved the game, because they were coming into that gym and it was stacked in so deep and so thick, the floor was sweating.
I remember them games as a kid. My father used to take me to them games, and I used to be like, whoa. But back then, nobody never ducked nobody. If you played against, okay, I'm going to find you. You come play against me, I'm going to play against you. Nowadays, the Pro-Am ain't like that, because people hiding, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to do this and that. But back then, I remember them days.
Yeah. Man, every week somebody was setting a record, and you better should do the best you could to make sure you wasn't a part of that video.
Yeah, man. Because I think what Mark Aguirre and Isaiah Thomas on the same team.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
That would be crazy to watch. Yeah, what was I'm curious to know because you have a very specific type of energy. You talk about Michael Jordan's energy, Isaiah Thomas's energy. I'm curious to know the dynamic between those in those relationships. So first of all, what was the energy like between you and Michael Jordan?
It was cool because I think it's funny to watch this special they have on TV with him, this new special, because they was talking about how he would get in people's skin. And I said, no, we never had that issue. And I didn't think. I told him, my reporter asked me, I said, no, we would never have that issue. He would never come at me like that because I'm not that guy. But that's also the reason probably why I never played for the Bulls. They came to me, they asked me before they signed Dennis, they asked me if I would come, and I told them no because they wanted me to come and babysit behind Dennis. And even at 35, 36, I was still playing. I was in great shape. And I was still doing what I wanted to do on the court. And I was not going to play behind Dennis, and it was not my ego or my pride. It was just as a professional, I deserved better. I put the time in. I earned the right to be here. And the GM said, well, you could win a championship with Mike. I said, I know, but I don't want to win it that way. So if that's the way I got to get it, I don't want it, So the energy with Mike has always been he respected me and I respected him. When we played together, we had fun in the summer league together, and so much so I put on games at Chicago Stadium. I put on one at UIC, did one at the Mecca in Milwaukee, and I stayed in touch with Mike even after the summer leagues, and he would come to those games and play and perform. Bring guys in from all over the league. I did some with Isaiah and Mark too. They would all come to that stuff too. They were different. I think their relationship, as far as getting to your question, between Mike and Isaiah and Mark, their scenario is different because they had a competitive thing that was separate and different from me totally, because it was that West Side thing and the Bulls being on the West Side, and I've been North and South as a Chi-Town product, but I've also been the cat that was real quiet and calm and laid back in the cut and didn't do a lot of this here. When it came down to the game, for me, it's always been let it speak for you. Let what you do speak for you. If that ain't loud enough, I ain't got a whole lot to say to you, Because, even now not being in the conversation like I would like to be with the Hall of Fame, yet you're putting people in there that don't have the specs that I have, the stats that I have done what I've done in the community, worked with the league, worked with the players. And it doesn't bother me because eventually somebody's going to see it. And I'm patient enough with that. But I think that the difference between those three is probably the playoff series, and the things, the ill will that they have had for each other came, from them banging Mike so hard, and Mike and them giving them a hard time.
Wow. So you never that's so interesting. So it seems like almost like MJ knew that you were going to work your butt off and that you were tough as nails. And so he knew not to push your buttons.
Well, you don't have to when you have somebody on your team, whether it's sports or business or even in your relationship, that is, you already know they're going to give you everything they got. And if you tell them what you need from them, they're going to give that to you. You don't disrupt that, because you're going to have a whole lot of other people around you. You're going to need to give that attention to, but not that person. I've never been that person. I've always been the one, if you told me what you needed, you were going to get that from me and more, And I think Mike was still learning the pro game early on. It took him a while to figure out some things. And I think, fortunately, for the relationship I had with him, it was just fun, summer league. And then when we would catch up with each other in the league and play against each other, it was really competitive. I remember a moment with him on the court in the NBA, but see, he had played with me all those years in Pro-Am. And we, the week before, what's his name? He went to Duke. He was the center at Duke at the time. Big white guy.
Christian Laettner?
No, he was about 6'11", almost 7 foot tall. He was a pretty good player. But anyway, he got stuck on Mike, and the Sports Illustrated and the newspapers quoted him as screaming, "Help! Help!" And I guess Mike got past him and dunked on him. And the following week, I got stuck on Mike the same way, had the flashback. But Mike knew me. He already knew me, because as soon as he got that tongue out of his mouth, I went and hit him real hard and knocked him down.
Hammer, he already knew he was about to get
Yeah, he went to the free throw line. I told him that's all I got for you. I'm not going to be on your highlight film.
So, okay, I got to settle a debate here. Which is a better team, 92 Bulls, 95, 96 Bulls? Which was harder for you to go up against? So in 92, you were with the Spurs. And in that record-breaking year, the 72-10 team, you were with the Bucks.
I think the 92 team, I think because that team I played with the Spurs, we were a much better team than way better than that Milwaukee team. That Milwaukee team was young, because I remember that game when they came to Milwaukee. And they clinched the record in that game. But in that game, we started off real strong. I started off pretty strong myself in that game, because I was determined not to be on the highlight list, if we could avoid it. But definitely, I think the 92 team was a better team. They may have a better record in 96. But by then, a lot of things were dwindling down. There weren't as many capable teams and players to compete against, hence the 70-plus games won. You couldn't do that in the time when from 82 to 92, when at the height there were great teams and there was more than one or two great players on the team. You weren't going to win games like that, because the Bulls were good, and they were really good, but they weren't that good that they could have done that in that era of the early part of 92. But that's about the end, when a lot of the older guys start to have to either go overseas because the league doesn't have a middle class. The new collective bargaining agreement would have come a year or so later, which would have allowed for some of these players to stay in the league and to solidify these younger players. If you don't have these seasoned players in place, then the younger players are pretty much all you have, as the face of the NBA. And really right now, to me, aside from two or three teams, that's what you have now. A lot of young guys playing basketball. Yeah. And they're playing a game that was invented by Don Nelson, draw and kick.
Don Nelson coached you in Milwaukee, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So that's where I learned it. I knew that game really well.
Got you. So y'all played a little small ball back then, huh?
Three-man game, with two out on the weak side, which were normally the two big guys, right, or one of the smaller guys, because I was one of the big guys who would play 3, 4, and 5. Right. So I was almost always either in a 2-man game or a 3-man game.
Oh, so you know that game backwards and forward.
Mm-hmm.
One of your games is the full game from December 9th, 1995, is on YouTube in full. And I watched about half of it a couple months ago when the last dance was going on.
Oh, the Bulls against the Bulls?
Yeah, one of your games against the Bulls in the 95-96 season is on YouTube. I'll send you the link. But
okay.
Oh, it was awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to coming home, I think they told me some years ago that I had one of the highest averages against, or the highest average against the Bulls.
Did you really?
Yeah, but when I was coming home, I was always coming with a full bag. I was like, I'm coming home. I can't come here and not act like, I ain't got no game just because they can't see me out on the West Coast with the Clippers or down the road with Milwaukee. We were in small markets, but when I would come to Chicago, man, I came to play. It was like going back to the summer pro-am. I would open up a whole nother part of my game in Chicago. And everybody they sent at me, I sent them back with his hands behind his back. Yeah, buddy. No, y'all not gonna stop me. Not at home.
No.
It's my home.
Man, so you came close to playing for the Bulls. It just wasn't the right situation, huh?
Well, it was a choice of my own. I don't have any regrets over it. I mean, I could have won championships with them, but I don't know that it would have brought me the peace that I have and continuing on my career and, really being able to tap into other young cats' careers and lives and be there for the people I needed to be there for. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have a championship in my pedigree, but it doesn't shorten who I am and what I've done.
Yeah. And I think you could. Well, I know you could play in this era. I mean, you shot jump
Probably
shots.
can do it now.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, they talk about, oh man, this new era when they shooting jump shots. I was like, man, TC shot jump shots, man. He shot 15-footers. He shot all that, man. Like I said, he could play in any era. But the one thing that they probably can't tolerate from you, you're gonna be physical. Like,
oh yeah. And think about it though, Nick. Think about this. When people say that, about Mike being the greatest player to have played the game, the reason why you can give credibility to it is because the level of players he played against, they were capable of being just as good as Mike given the same set of circumstances, which, Mike was great all in and of himself, but he also had the whistle. Now, you figure my first 10 years, I averaged about 22 points, 8, 9 rebounds a game without a whistle.
Yeah.
Give me a whistle, that's 25, 30 points a game.
Yeah,
another 10, 15, 10, 15 boards, and it makes a big difference. But I also think that the credibility of the era of the 80s and the early mid-90s is that it was still a game that if you were not the most skilled player, because you could be physical with players that were skilled or more skilled than you, it was the equalizer. Right. In this era, they can't touch nobody. And I mean, no wonder Harden can score 30-some points a game. I mean, if every time, and every time I see him drive to the hole or some of these young guys drive to the hole, I cringe. I'm like, well, dang, if you're going to let him drive to the basket and you hear the whistle, you need to beat the hell out of him. You need to foul him so hard that every time he drive to the basket, he's thinking about how hard you're going to hit him. And don't be flagrant. Just hit him hard enough where he know he can't have the free throw and the 2 points.
Exactly. Man, that's the era now, man. The game of basketball changed.
Man, it's scary watching it.
James Harden go to the free throw line maybe, 15 times a game or something?
Oh, that joker would be thinking about me every time he goes to the line. He's not going to get the basket and the free throw.
Right. Right.
So you mentioned that you got a chance to mentor players, and then, I think, Nick, we could probably keep Mr. Cummings on for another 3 hours, but we'll let him get back to his family and stuff. I'm curious to know, who's a player that you really enjoyed mentoring? Who's
David Robison, Sean Elliott, Allen Iverson, a lot of guys that most people, even Gary Payton. I mean, I got a chance to mentor them guys when I got to play because I brought something to them that they hadn't had. Everybody else would fall into, with the exception of David and Sean, because I got them. I got traded from Milwaukee to San Antonio to undergird them, so that it wouldn't be a big, thing for them in their rookie years in the league. And the irony is that was a great team. But it's been a lot of players, that even some players that may not be big name players, I got a chance to speak into their lives and help them along the way. And it wasn't all basketball. A lot more of it was off the court stuff, how to deal with life, how to deal with a woman, the wife, your family, because a lot of these kids wanted to take care of their families, but in doing so, it would cause them to be bankrupt, because the family didn't understand how money worked no more than the player did, coming into it. So, I would offer advice and counsel and stay in the shadows, but it was the reason if you play 18 years or more, if you play a long time and have longevity in the league or in any business, it is because you affect the bottom line of so many different people. And they look to you for that wisdom and counsel and advice. Something as simple as, I retired with Golden State. The young guys didn't want to do the signing things, which are all the things you have to do when you're a professional athlete, balls, banners, whatever. And so they came to me and asked me if I could help. So I gave them a solution. I said, bring them food in after practice one day, set the food out, set out all the stuff you want them to sign, and make it so that it's almost like a carnival kind of atmosphere. Keep them loose. They'll get it done and be done with it within an hour, and you'll be on your way, and they'll be eating, sitting around, just enjoying it. And they adopted it, and it worked out for our young guys, and it worked out for the administration. But you got to have people who've been there, done it, who can help you through it, take some of the onus off you.
Wow, man, you got that business mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, simple is simple. You don't get no simpler than simple. And the seasons are so long, you have to find a real equitable way of doing things that works for everybody, not just you.
Mm-hmm. What was your message to a young Allen Iverson? Because you had him his third year in the league, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, totally different energy.
Yeah. But I understood him because he came from where I came from. I mean, coming from the streets and the hood, and whereas most people didn't want to give me credit for my past because I didn't go out blowing my horn, and I wasn't living that same lifestyle I was living before I became a believer. But I still have a fresh memory of those things that helped me get here, and it was all those things that tested me. And I think with the guys, Allen, one of the things with Allen was that because I could have done the same thing all the other cats that came before me who were veterans had done, and which is fall over into his camp, hang out with him and his party crew. But I didn't. I chose to stay who I am. And that, by doing that, gave me the ability and the right to confront certain issues on the team. In fact, Larry Brown coached me when I was in San Antonio, and he and I had a fallout over something that was insensitive on my part because I was naive about a reporter at the time who had been a friend of mine for years, and he and I had gotten into a conversation, and we're talking about Larry Brown, and it was nothing I hadn't said to Larry Brown face to face. But turns out that the reporter took it and put it in the newspaper, and it wound up in the national news. And then the problem was that they thought that me and Larry Brown had a problem. So after the game we had played, all the reporters rushed to my locker and surrounded me and started hitting me with these questions. And I was like, oh, shoot. And Larry Brown comes in later, and we go into a room privately. He said, TC, did you say all these things? And, I've always felt like this as a man, even when I was younger. Man up, to what you did, and live with the realities of it, because people will respect you more for the truth than for a lie. And so when he asked me the first time, I told him, I said, yeah, I said it. I said, but Coach, I said, I didn't mean no disrespect to you. I said, and these are things I've said to you to your face. He said, I know, but that guy doesn't like me. And I can't believe you would have this conversation with him. And I told him, I said, well, I'm sorry. I said, I really didn't mean that. And, to prove that we were both men about it, I left San Antonio, went to Milwaukee for another year, and then went to Seattle for half a year. And then Larry calls me at the end of that year and asked me to come and help mentor his guys. And he didn't have to do that, but he knew what was in my heart and my mind. Mm-hmm. And he knew the kind of guy I was. He knew he couldn't have a soft guy with those guys, Derek Coleman and Al, and a lot of them young guys he had down there. They were wild, but you needed someone to kind of stabilize the team. So when they brought me in, I was like, yeah, cool. And I could still ball, I could still run, and I could compete with them, and that mattered. If you're going to have older cats in, you can't have no broke down dudes in there with these young guys. You got to have somebody who can still play and can think the game too, and then can relate to them, from where they came from and where they are.
Yeah, Derek Coleman was tough too.
Yeah,
Derek Coleman, he was good, man, in the city. Detroit, I talk to him from time to time, but
you're a good brother too.
Yeah, yes,
straight shooter. That's all you want. You shoot straight.
Yep, because man, he used to invite us down. When I was coaching Morgan Park, he used to invite us down. I used to go play in his little shootout or whatever. Just sitting down, getting to know him, man. He a straight shooter. Mm-hmm. Get to the point, like he don't hold no punches.
No.
But he couldn't get Marcus Liberty to come to Syracuse. He tried to recruit him there. It didn't work.
Marcus was destined for Illinois, and the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still got him some gold, some of that orange though. It's in that Illini color, ain't it?
Oh, yeah. I've heard the stories.
Hey, not you picking DePaul. Like, what came about that with that?
Great question.
You know, I felt like my inspiration behind the moment was that I was supposed to be in Chicago because I had went to University of Iowa when Lute Olson was there and visited there, and I was on my way to UNLV, and I probably would have wound up playing for Tart with it, but the exception was that I really felt that I was through the Spirit of God, I felt like my place was in Chicago. And so then it boiled down to Loyola of Chicago or DePaul, and then I fell in love with Ray when thing is when I was DePaul never came to see me, and I wanted, and that year they had gone Final Four with Mark and the guys Gary and Clyde, and so that following year would have been my freshman year. So I called them, asked them, why haven't you all reached out to me? I have an interest in the school, but I'm not seeing anyone or heard from anyone from the school. And they said, well, we've been calling, we've been blowing up your phone, but your coach won't let us get through to you, because they would go back then, they would go through the coaches.
Wow.
And so I called and I said, well, if you set up a time, I'll be there. I want to come see the university. So I basically recruited myself to DePaul. And when I got there, they told me it was Mark's team, and that they didn't know what I could do. They had heard a lot. I was what they called a blue chipper. I was coming up late. And because I really, truly only played 2 years of high school basketball, a lot of stuff was missed. The only camp I ever went to was Athletes for Better Education. So with Forrest. So I didn't go to the 5-star and all that stuff. So Mark and Isaiah and Doc and all of those guys got to those camps. I didn't know enough. I mean, I didn't know, really I didn't know. And by the time I got to DePaul, they told me what my role was going to be, and I accepted it. And, it's not going to be your team, or you basically, there was no guarantee it would be my team when Mark left. It was something I was going to have to take. And for us, we played a national televised game in my junior year the year after Mark left, against Louisville. And in that game, that's when it became my team. I think I did like 39 and 20 something boards, And so it was like, they was like, oh, we don't know where all this came from. I know where it came from. It's always been here. Y'all told me to turn it down. I turned it down. I did what you asked, but now it's my turn. It take my girl, man. She said, like, wait, hold up a second. Let me get this right in my head. You only played 2 years of high school, and you played 3 years of college, and then you go on and win the Rookie of the Year in the NBA. James Worthy is the first pick. You're the second pick. Dominique is the third pick. And then you play 17 more years, and you only had 2 years of high school. And that's why I challenge cats all the time. They be talking about, well, nobody's going to see me. I said, Don, important that everybody see you. Just it's important that the right people see you, that you put yourself in position to be the best you can be every night. Somebody's going to see you, even if it's an all-star game and they're only looking at these other all-stars. When the camera rolls, and I learned this fooling with Mark now, because there's so many cats were complaining Mark was getting too much time and too much television. I told him, I said, man, you all don't realize when that camera rolls, if you're on top of your game, it's going to hit you too.
It's going to hit you.
I said, just do your job, You just do your job and it'll roll towards you. I mean, the thing is, it works in the bad too. If you're a bank robber and the camera's on and you got a bunch of bank robbers with you, and the camera go hit all of them. Yeah. It works in the good too.
All right, one name I need to ask you about that has not come out yet, Bill Walton.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to hear what that was like.
Bill is probably
San Diego Clippers, and Bill Walton is there.
He was the funniest dude, man. I mean, he was truly a rebel. In my rookie year, I remember talking to Bill once and saying to Bill, man, I'm tired and I just need a break. And Bill went into this rant about, hell, he said, it's not in your contract that you have to practice, T. Just F them, just sit out. He just went in, and I was looking at him, and I thought to myself, you have to be 7 foot and white to think like that. And he was crazy, though, but he was the funniest guy, man. We would, back then, they would have literal liquor things in the locker room. So after the game, the old cats would just sit up and get drunk. Well, Bill would take the cooler with all the liquor in it back to his room.
No. So he was wild back then.
He was really, tremendous competitor as an athlete. Really smart dude. And but just, he was just he always walked that line, that thin line. In practice, him and Rich, I can't remember Richard's last name, but Richard, because Bill had in his contract, he had a clause he'd only play like 2 or 3 games, and he get to pick the games he would play every week or every other week, and because he had that foot issue.
Richard Anderson.
Yeah, Richard Anderson. Yeah, and so he come to practice. He didn't want to get hit on and all of that stuff physically, and Richard was basically not a physical guy, but he was physical with Walton and when he came to practice initially. And Bill kept telling him, he said, look, I done told you that, stop. And Richard said, well, what you gonna do? And they just going at it, right? Well, they're going at it. Bill Walton is on one end of the court and Richard is on the other end at the top of the free throw line. And Bill says to him, and it gets quiet, he says, you say one more word to me, I'm gonna walk down here and knock your effing teeth out. Your front teeth. He's, I'm gonna knock your effing front teeth out. And I thought to myself, ain't no way in the world he's gonna let him walk all the way from one end of the court to the other without throwing up his hands to let him know he's gonna protect himself. Right. Richard never put his hands up. By the time Bill Walton got to him, he hit him in his mouth and knocked his 2 teeth out on the free throw line.
No way.
No exaggeration. He hit him and knocked that grill out. He knocked it right out on the free throw line. I thought to myself, that would never happen to me, because as soon as I feel danger, if I feel threatened, I throw my hands up to let you know I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Oh, but the old NBA was funny because it had so many characters in it that I think some of the funniest people I've ever met, I met them on the basketball court or in the locker room. And Bill Walton was one of them, and he was a really good teammate though, because he was just another one of them straightforward kind of cats. And coming into the league as a rookie, I didn't have anything marginally to measure things by, so I had to, whatever was around me, I drew from it, and he was someone that I had been I'm a history man, so I would study the history of the game and the players that played the game. So I knew his history at UCLA. I knew his history with Portland before I even got there. I had done my homework. I knew who I was dealing with. And I knew that even in spite of the fact that his foot was hurt, that wasn't who Bill Walton saw himself. When Bill got on the court, Bill saw himself as that kid from UCLA and that dude with the bandana or the little thing around his head that was playing for Portland. He saw himself that way, because I would have done the same thing, because even when I tore my knee up, it did not regulate my thought process into thinking I was lesser than the Terry Cummings who won Rookie of the Year, because I still knew that if you put me in the right situation and gave me the ball, I could still give you what you need on a day in, day out basis, because that didn't have nothing to do with one piece or joint being broken. That whole productivity was based on a total thought process in my head that I could do it. And I could do it even if I wasn't 100%. Right.
Now, how did you get from you putting up them numbers? I think you got 24, 25 in the first 2 years there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to Milwaukee. How did that come about? They trade you or what?
Yeah. In fact, I had a dream I was going to be traded, and it was to a team that wore green uniforms, but I was not a Boston Celtics fan, so I knew I wasn't going there.
Right.
And I actually went to the owner at the time, Don. And,
was this Donald Sterling?
Yeah, Donald Sterling. And
we got to do a separate episode on time you'll tell me those stories.
Yeah, and he and when I walked into his office, he said, "Well, hey TC, how are you doing? What can I do for you?" Yes, I want you to trade me. And he said, "Well, I can't trade you. You know, you are a star player, and you know we got so much in you." I said, "No, you can. I dreamed about it, and I know this was God speaking to me." And I said, "And when you trade me to Milwaukee." And so that was the end of my rookie year. When we were coming into or this was the end of the second year, and coming into that what would have been my third year with the Clippers, I started the first day or two of camp. And on the second night or third day, I got a call. I was traded to Milwaukee.
Yeah, had a good team too.
So you walked into Donald Sterling's office and said, "God told me that I'm going to be traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. I would like for you to."
That's a paraphrased version of it.
Yeah,
what
right.
I told him, what I told him is I had a dream, and my dreams are very vivid, and the spiritual side of me is something I'm very careful with when I'm dealing with natural or carnal-minded people, because you can come across looking real crazy. But I know that most people will know me well enough that I'm intelligent enough when I speak to you. I'm sharing with you from a place of intimacy of my own that I know that you can't relate to. And so I'm very careful as to how far I go with this with you. So I just told him I had a dream. And in this dream, I was playing for a team, and I want to be traded to Milwaukee because I believe it was the Milwaukee Bucks. And I don't even know if Milwaukee and Clippers had been talking, or if I came in and said something that planted a seed. But it could have been that they were already talking. He probably was surprised that I had any kind of inroads. But I've always believed, and that can be scary, you know, this joker walking in, how does he know? We ain't told nobody, you know. But for me, it's always been a part of my life, you know, as I've always known things before it was time to do them. I knew people before I had met them. I would see them in my dreams, I would have, they're not psychic moments, they're literally prophetic moments where God reveals some part of knowledge or wisdom that he knows that we don't know. But it's something that most people have probably had something similar happen to them at some particular time or another, and you just blew it off because you didn't think nothing of it. But those are exciting moments for me because that's inspired to me by God.
So how did that transition then to off the court stuff? Do you also get these same sort of dreams and messages to do things like the music, other artistic endeavors you have? What's
Business.
What's that like?
Well, it's all connected. I don't think that they're separate. I mean, because in 1982, 83, as my rookie year, I had a bit of a vision. You know, I was sleeping or awake, I can't tell you, but I heard a voice said that I'm going to use you to change the face of the music industry. And I thought I would be some kind of music star, but that's because that sometimes our minds are just so narrow about the bigger picture. But what has happened is since 82, 83, I have met with owners, you know, heads of record companies, labels, TV stations, film companies, and have been able to pour into them. And true change does not happen because, you know, a Michael Jackson is born or R. Kelly or J-Lo, or it happens because the face of whatever it is has been transitioned or changed. You change the face, you change the look. Perception is everything in this natural society of ours. So if you get in and are able to change the way people look at things, then you've changed it. You know. But it all connects.
The influencers, right?
You
influence the influencers.
Yeah, and subtly. One man plants, another waters, but it's always God that gives the increase. You know, you do your part.
Verses. Wow. Was there anything that we didn't ask you about that you'd like to? I could ask about 60 more pages of questions here. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we didn't ask you about?
No, I think you covered a lot of things. We just hit the surface of them. I mean, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
That was just the surface?
Yeah. There's a lot more stuff. I mean, I got a lot of stories.
Where do you live these days?
in Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
the Atlanta
you did not play
area.
for the Hawks.
No. And you know, they're an irony because they've had some really, really good teams, but they've never really been supported here.
Why is that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because we're in the South and it's football country.
Mm.
You know, these Southern folk, they love their football. Basketball is cool. Now they love Dominique, but they did not per se really support the team here the way like Milwaukee. All the teams I think I played for, they were really supported, even when we were losing really bad in San Diego. Huh?
Seattle must have been nuts. That team with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. And
that as a city, it reminded me of when I got to San Antonio. It's the only game in town. You know, in Seattle, although they had the Mariners baseball team and they had a football – I don't know if they had a football team at the time. Yeah, they did. They had the Seahawks. So, but the atmosphere in Seattle, because, you know, you got two major cities there. You got Seattle and Tacoma really close by each other. And that's a lot of people to support a professional team. Mm-hmm. And they love the Sonics. I mean, Gary and them couldn't do anything wrong. And then they wound up in the championship that year with against the Bulls, too. So that gave them some global exposure. Mm. Yeah, but I enjoyed playing in Seattle. Some of my best friends live there in the Tacoma area. And I would work with them and do things with them in ministry. And it's just important. I think one of the greatest things about being in the league is you got to find people that you identify with that can help you keep you out of trouble and keep you focused on whatever your true agenda is. Because otherwise athletes get into trouble. Most people don't realize, aside from practice and games and appearances from time to time, athletes have a lot of free time. Yeah. And that is how they get into the trouble they get into. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you need people that you can spend some time with and blow off some steam that doesn't involve, you know, bringing people in that can be detrimental to the overall agenda.
Wow. So, okay, when are you going to be a GM or an owner of a team or be a senator or what's your next step? Where do you go? You've done music, you've done business, you've done basketball. What's kind of your next venture?
Getting through this pandemic.
Yeah, you got that.
And, you know, coming through it, you know, with a clarity of what's next. You know, I'm really working on, you know, between the books and the music, I've got 3 new projects that I'm working on at one time on the music side, a new book. I've got a clothing store that I co-partner with my partner in crime here at home. We do a lot of things by diversity because you don't know what's going to be really successful. You can set out to be successful at what you do, but you become or have more opportunities towards success the more things you have to diversify in. Mm-hmm. So I think it's unique when I hear people call me a basketball player because it means they don't know me. Or if they call me a preacher, it means they don't know me, you know, because it's so much more to the package. And I believe that is the intent of God for all of us. So if you ask me what's next, man, the sky is really the limit. I mean, I wrote that book Limitless because it is my testimony. Mm. You know, you get to a point where you get tired of being labeled for who you used to be. And you have to get past that to find out who you are now. You know, and that's been the plight of many people. Most folk give up on it. But for me, I figure as long as I live, I'm going to learn because I'm a student. I've always been a student. I love history. I love learning from the mouths of other people, from their experiences. And I love taking those very same things and, you know, bringing them into the equation of my own life and see how relative they can be. You know, but I got a lot of things I want to do.
Nick and I are going to go right after we hit end recording. We're going to go buy those 2 books right now.
Only one of them is for sale.
Oh, okay.
The second one yet.
Gotta let us know.
Finding oneself in the midst of the journey.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Nick and I are going to have our own little book club. We're going to read that. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been like
Yeah, I did.
unbelievable treat. I mean, right, Nick? Wasn't this incredible?
Oh man, man. I'm so happy I could be with it. I don't want to call him the legend because he wear a lot of hats, but man, just sitting here talking with you, man, and just getting to everybody getting to know you, because at the end of the day, they need to talk about you more in Chicago, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I know, because you paved the way for a lot of people. You know,
Well, I appreciate that.
You stayed in the city. You gave back to the community. Like you did a number of things for Chicago. And when when you talk about basketball, you definitely have to mention Terry Cummings. Like if you don't mention that, that's just crazy to me. Like they don't mention Tim Hardaway enough. They don't mention Marcus Liberty enough. Y'all did a number of things to help kids in general, man. It's just crazy to me. But hopefully the Hall of Fame will call you.
It'll come. I ain't worried about it. I ain't setting up losing no sleep over it, because my life is not going to be exemplified by whether I make it or not, because I am who I am by the grace of God. And I truly believe that, that, man, I appreciate you too, though, Nick. I've heard a lot about you over the years. Your name has come up so often, and I thought, I said, do I know Nick? Because I know the Irvings,
right?
And so your name will come up. I'm glad I finally got a chance to spend some time with you on this, this platform, and get to meet you, see you face to face. And I appreciate, the labor of love that you've done in the city, for my part, and I think probably with Tim and Marcus too, and others. I made a choice to when I retired, to step away from the NBA life, so that I could get it all out my blood, and I could find myself for who I needed to be. Because most of us who spend a lot of time in the NBA, it's like PTSD when you retire, because the adulation is gone. No one is calling you. No one's calling your name. It's something you never known as an adult, whether a young adult or a full senior adult. And for the first time in your life, you are alone, and when you come out of that place, you got a lot of things that you got to deal with, pertaining to yourself and your future. And for me, I made a choice to walk away from it. And I think at times with this generation, it's hurt me, because in the sense that they don't really know what I've done. They don't really know how I did it. And how I kept it all on the board. We did the camp at Carver High School for about 23 years. I paid for it out of my own pocket every year. We didn't ask people for anything, because I didn't want the kids to have to be caught up in the game of marketing and all of that publicity that goes with it, because you got sponsors and they want pictures with you and your kids because they want to sell their product. And the Allgale Garden area has always been difficult and hard. And the kids came from all over the place, but the majority of the kids came from Allgale Gardens. Right. And they needed something to stabilize themselves. We had one fight in 23 years, and it was in the first year. And I brought all the kids into a circle, and I told them simply, if you mess this up, you won't have this. This is yours. You got to protect it. They took care of business in that gym and outside that gym. And for the next 22 years, we didn't have to call the police. We didn't have an ambulance coming in there to get nobody. It was a joy to serve with them, and to be a part of that. It wasn't a pain at all. I mean, the greatest joy I got when my season was over is I had that to look forward to. I knew I was going to be able to pour into 250, 300 kids, or more. Yeah.
And kids was looking forward to that.
Well, I'm getting letters and stuff from even to today.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I can see that, because that's they ain't really had much out there to look forward to. And you put that camp on, they was looking forward to that. And my father always gave back to the outside tournament that Red used to put on. He used to load them up with the Adidas stuff. So man, the Garden's been good to me. I don't have a bad thing to say about it.
That's real talk, though. We should never forget how important that is, no matter how small it may appear to us. I got grown men that write me from all over the world to this day. I just read a couple of them in the last week, guys who had been touched by what happened in those camps, because we don't know the impact of what we're doing is going to have on people. It may not affect them immediately, but over their lifetime, it's going to do things that it would save their lives, literally, because if they, like we took those kids out of the gardens, out of the projects, and bused them into the city, so they could see what it was like to be around. Like most of them had never been around white folk. So we had to bring them into the city, bring them to a big hall, have these people serve them, and the kids were initially just all over the place, and then we got them calmed down and told them, this is yours. You're gonna have this every year. This is how you gotta act, because you're not a wild animal. You are better than this. And so as the years go by, we watch the groups and the kids grow into knowing that they're gonna have this, and watching their behavior change. That they would go in initially in their workout stuff from the championship games and stuff, and then after a while, them jokers started bringing clothes, But it told me that their maturation was expanding based on the fact that they felt the liberty to do so because it was theirs, and they had to protect it, And so that was, if I missed anything, I missed the look in those young boys, those little boys and teenagers' eyes of knowing they had it and that it was theirs. It was special, and everybody outside wanted to get in. They wanted to be a part of it, because, it was a lot of competition on the court. And for the real players, the real ballers, you always want to be where the best players are.
Always. You ain't trying to duck nobody.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name always talk about you, like Johnny Owens?
Yeah.
Johnny Owens, Johnny Owens, he was working at Morgan Park where I was at for a little bit, and we talked about you every day.
He's a good man.
Yeah, every single day. He said, man, Terry used to come back, Nick, man, take care of them kids, man, and be there for them. Man, he talked about that almost every day.
It meant a lot to me. It really did, because, Nick, I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have, my father was an alcoholic, most of my life. My father didn't stop drinking until I was about the same time I became a believer. My father stopped drinking. I was 16 years old. But prior to that, he was physically abusive to us boys in the family. The way we and I know you know about this, but he was very aggressive toward us boys and not aggressive at all toward his girls. But we call hell from him, and it didn't kill us. It made us better men, But it taught me when I raised my sons, I was determined, man. There's some things that I learned from my father I will not teach my sons. Because I want them to be better men than that, when it comes down to dealing with their significant. So, that's my phone acting up. But I wanted them to have better opportunities, and I'm an adamant, avid believer that when your sons in particular get to a certain age, we have to stop putting hands in treating them a certain kind of way, because it affects their manhood, especially in a society that already beats them down because of the nature of their culture and the color of their skin in general. And that's not all folk. That's just, in general, when you see it, all these movements, Black Lives Matters and all this stuff that's going on. For us, the reality is that we live with this when they leave. It'll still be that thing that we have to teach and train our sons and our daughters how to respond and to react to the powers that be, the police, and any other group of people that are coming in on the behalf of the local or the state or federal government. We have to teach our children how to respond to them. And it's interesting that a lot of things we have to teach our sons and daughters, a lot of other cultures don't have to. Or they take it for granted, but we don't, because we've seen the end of it. And way before Brother George died, we were seeing this stuff. Look, bro, let me tell you something. I grew up in the age of Cornbread Earl and me. That's way before your time.
Hey, he was running.
Yeah, in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain. Cornbread Earl and me. Yeah.
And I remember when I was a young kid when that movie came out, man, I loved the rain and I loved playing in the rain. when I saw that movie, man, when it would rain, I just go on, sit on the porch. You know? Shoot, I won't be getting shot by no police thinking I'm somebody else. Just got a basketball and a soda.
Hey, rain, sleet, or snow. That's how we grew up playing.
Yeah.
Like,
in
man,
your own
Gordon,
backyard. Don't go no shoot, man. We put dirt and sand on that snow and double up our pants and socks and gloves and go outside in the backyard and put that rim up on the telephone pole and hammer it, and we ball out there like we was playing in front of thousands.
Exactly, man. Rain, sleet, or snow, it didn't matter. Hey, Gordon, that's how we grew up. You got to play no matter what.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
man. No matter what.
Good.
All right. Well, next time you're in Chicago, you got to let us know. Okay.
Okay. Well, we've been itching to get there. We're going to wait till this pandemic slow down a little bit. But I'm going to get home and check on my family, too.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you all having me on. It was good to chat.
This is awesome.
If you don't mind, I'm going to inbox you my number. Send me yours so we stay in contact.
Okay, I'll do that, Nick.
Man, I appreciate that.
All right. Bless y'all, man.
All right, bless you. All right.
Such a blessing. Thank you.